F1. Richard, do you want to give a little?
Sure. This is the PIP RCD, the board is the appointing authority for this body. There's a letter here from Charlie Stevenson, who is the business manager for the PIP Resource Conservation District. And they are asking the board to appoint Alan Nelson to the open board member position to replace John Rogers. Attached is his application for that. And they're also asking to reappoint Buck Parks, Tim Babcock to the PIT RCD as their terms expire as well.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we appoint Alan Nelson to the vacant seat and reappoint Bud Parks and Tim Babcock to their terms on the PIT RCD board.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this before we take action? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Okay, we'll move on to.
He's coming.
We'll move on to item F2. This is the Lassen County Fishing Game Commission.
Right, Mr. Ometrot's here to address the board on this.
Hi.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. What you have before you is a letter and a resolution to amend for to be sent, the resolution to be sent to Brian Dolly, Assemblyman Dolly, to amend AB 711, which is the bill which was passed to the act to ban lead-based ammunition, hunting ammunition, and amended to allow the counties the authority to implement the bill or reject implementation within their boundaries. We used economic terms, and we only used the economic terms that directly affect everyone in the state, not just hunters. For this is based on an economic study done by Southwick Associates Incorporated for the National Shooting Sports Foundation. We found out through a public meeting that was finally held here by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, which Assemblyman Dolly and his staff pressured them long enough to get him here, that the governor is concerned about distressing hunters too much. And he is concerned about if it becomes an economic issue or a very divisive issue, that he's concerned that they may introduce legislation to repeal it. But to help him out, we would like Assemblyman Dolly to add this to some legislation or introduce it as legislation of its own, to allow the counties who will bear the brunt of the economic impact, because we do make money in Lassen County off of hunting, and hunting will decrease, well, probably about 36% in this state because of this act. So we feel that the county should be able to say yay or nay. I'm pretty sure the counties that have condor habitat will probably still be stuck with it. But we don't have condors up here. And if we start getting them, I don't know. But, so I would ask the board to approve this and send it on to Brian, Assemblyman Dolly.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing it up. It is a perfect example of when you have like a proactive local fishing game commission. The good stuff that people done. I mean, it's really, even though the state, burdens us with some strange things, and it's also, fortunately, with we have a good assemblyman, representing us. And
Mr. Chairman, that would move the adoption of the resolution
nice to see this come through the pipeline.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Sure, on discussion. On the very front page, in the last sentence, we feel this approach will make it more difficult for the ant hunting organization.
Those are good eating.
Really small bullets. It's not much left.
Maybe.
Mine says anti-hunting, so.
Mine says ant.
Oh, ant. Okay, I see ant. I didn't see it
My
before.
suggestion is maybe Mr.
We'll make it, blame it on our lady.
Can't go down to RC and see if we can get other counties interested.
And I would be happy to do that. And the other thing I would like to see in, on the resolution in the first whereas, here again, I'd just like to clean it up a little bit. The first sentence really doesn't make a whole lot of a sentence, a whole lot of sense. Implementation of AB 711 will result in 36% of California hunter either stopping to hunt. I mean, that should be hunters, so it should be pluralizer.
Getting sloppy in my old age.
And was that other first change on the first page also?
Yes, the first change is on the first page on the cover letter.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we'll get a good copy down to Such.
And I don't know how this would affect Lassen County versus the other counties, but in Lassen County, we're a little bit more unique than the rest of the state just because we have sage grouse. And we also have antelope. I don't know if we still have sage grouse on there or not, but they did it one time. And antelope, which is one of the few counties in the state that have antelope as well.
We have pronghorns. There are no antelope in North America.
Pronghorn, excuse me. But, I mean, those impact, a big impact in the county.
Yes, they do.
And so I think that maybe that's something else that could be added in there as well.
Sage grouse is another issue all by itself. It's federal listing, and there is a season on sage grouse. They just choose not to issue permits.
But there's a season there, so whenever they issue permits, the hunters would go to Lassen County to fulfill those.
Does the state issue those permits or the
State. State issues this thing. We discussed this once before at board in one of these meetings. The state left the season there, even though we don't hunt them right now in Lassen, Inyo, or Mono counties, because in the current environment, if they close the season, period, getting it reopened again would be pure hell. So what they've done is they kept the season, but they just don't issue permits for sage grouse at this time. The Fish and Wildlife Service has until they're supposed to do it next year, determine whether they're going to list the sage grouse here or they're not. And this is why all the work, a bunch of us have been working on for sage grouse conservation, and we're still working with that. So whether we use lead or copper, it has nothing to do with the sage grouse right now. This issue is for big game hunting and for migratory bird hunting and upland game and small game hunting, changing from lead to something else.
The sage grouse is upland bird though.
Yeah, but the issue with the sage grouse is not tied to the lead ban. It's a whole separate thing.
Right, but if you're going to go hunt sage grouse, if they ever do allow hunting for sage grouse, even when they do.
To add that as hunting to this resolution would then open the door to the Humane Society of the United States.
Well,
People
I
for
was
ethical treatment of
saying
animals.
that for Lassen County, you know, that we have the ability to hunt pronghorn antelope and sage grouse.
We don't
Potential
have-
ability provided that the state
Yeah.
Fish and Game gives out quotas for tags or whatever you want to call it. Those opportunities exist right here in Lassen County versus they don't have that down in San Bernardino or
No.
San Francisco or LA or Marin or whatever. Lassen County is one of the few areas in the state that have those species there, provided that they're allowed to be hunted by the state instead, is my point.
They're still allowed to be hunted, just don't use lead ammunition after 2019 if this amendment doesn't go through.
Right. those are gonna be more the economic impacts we're talking about.
And we kind of just stay away from the economic impacts that directly affected hunters.
Okay. And then my final one is just to me personally, and the 1, 2, and the third whereas, you have all wildlife, just not game species, will lose. And then you go on to talk about a more direct loss of the revenue.
Yeah.
My opinion is we ought to make that first sentence, all wildlife, just not game species, will lose, make that a separate whereas, but have a little bit more elaboration on why they will lose.
Well,
That's just-
whereas above, a reduction of hunters in California by 13% will reduce economic activity in California. Losses will include 1,868 jobs, 68.7 million in salaries and wages, 13.9 million state and local taxes, and 5.8 million in federal tax. All wildlife will lose. This will be a direct loss of these 2.7 in revenue, reduced license sales, and reduction in California allocation of federal excise revenue of 5.7% loss from the federal wildlife restoration funds, which are commonly called Pittman Robinson funds. I think just to put whereas all wildlife, not just game species, will lose, and then put another whereas.
Yeah, but
We're gonna-
in that first, in the word will lose, but why will they lose? Why will all wildlife lose? I guess was a continuation of that sentence.
If you
Then
don't,
then have another whereas, there will be a direct loss of.
all wildlife will lose because of the loss of that income that we've described in the first whereas and in part of this, and then covered up again in the second whereas. If you dump wildlife restoration trust funds for the state of California, which is based on your number of hunters, hunter education may even take a hit in the state of California. We don't know that.
Well, maybe move that to the last part of the sentence then. All wildlife just not game species will lose. Make that the final sentence to that. That would clean it up for me.
Move that all wildlife, not just game species, will lose to the end of that paragraph.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? Give it your best shot. I'm a short timer.
All I have.
Okay.
Just trying to help you out, though.
Okay.
Now,
The motion on the floor, and I think the second one from Kerr will incorporate the two suggested amendments made by Mr. Paul.
Three changes.
do you have those?
He's going to, that we,
And you'll be able to do that.
yes, and did you say you wanted it for today, so you?
If I could take it down today, I think
Okay,
it would be
so
helpful.
we have time in between our meetings, and he gets it to me, I can do that, as long as you just change the first page of the resolution, and the signature page, I'll have him sign.
It won't affect the signature
Right.
page, because
I know.
it's just
I'm
adding a
just
yes
making
on
sure.
one and moving that one sentence, so it should just change that one sheet, so that we can get. the
Oh,
signature.
change the letter 2 to M.
Yes, would you get that to the office then? That'd be great.
Be later this afternoon. I have another meeting.
Yeah, well, we have a meeting this afternoon too, so it's.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll bring it back.
Okay, great job. Good job.
Thank you all.
Call for the question.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in, is there any other public comment before we take action? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, let's take up item H1. Purchasing policy.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have undertaken a revision of the purchasing policy. Julie Morgan is prepared to present the item. Essentially, I'll let Julie go into the details, but essentially what we're doing is trying to keep up with inflation here in terms of some authorities that are granted to department heads and myself in terms of dollar thresholds of approval. So that will let Julie expand on the revisions.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors. Today we're here to discuss an improved and revised purchasing policy. The county has been operating under the current purchasing policy since 2004, and in the last 10 years we've received lots of comments from departments on ways to improve the policy and to clarify and separate purchasing and contracting policies. So in addition, in 2007, this board approved following the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act, and this revised document incorporates the rules into the current county policy, or into the new proposed policy, to provide a more comprehensive document for use by county departments. There was a lot of consideration and input that was taken, including a group consisting of the CAO, department heads, and county council to receive input and to discuss how we want to change and improve the document. It does provide a little more authority. Many of our purchasing limits are quite low. In looking at other county policies, we tried to look at what their limits were, and we are operating. The hope is to improve workflow, but still have budgetary monitoring and fair competitive processes with the new proposed limits. We did take this to the department heads.
Changing the limits from what to what? I mean, I see what the new ones are, but what was it before this? I mean, can you refresh that?
You bet. Our current policy is from $0 to $750. A department head can sign and make purchases. Between $750 and $2,000, a county purchase order is required, which takes administrative review and auditor review for budgetary proposals. So that was currently $750 to $2,000 was required purchase order. $2,000 to $10,000 required a purchase order, but also formal, informal quotes. And then $10,000 and up required formal bidding process and board approval. So those limits, when you look at the new policy, they've just gone up a little bit.
So the $750 limit's being raised to $2,000. So everything up to $2,000 would be
A department head.
the department head, and then $2,000 to $10,000 is the informal process.
Yes, recommending informal quotes
Okay.
and still department head, but also a purchase order.
And bringing it to the board, you're going to change it from $10,000 to $25,000. So $25,000 and under is basically the CAO as the.
Between 10 and 25, yes. Does that address your question?
And that kind of is also more consistent with the new capital improvement plan, where we've actually raised the threshold from that $25,000 up to $50,000. So it's only the things over $50,000 are in the capital improvement plans, and the stuff below $50,000 fits within the dynamics of this.
How does this fit in with the fair? With their entertainment and their contracts, and we're just going to be covered, because they're kind of a different animal.
They believe they are a different animal. They are a department of the county, and they're subject to purchasing policy.
But this way here, the CAO can actually sign off on most of those
Is this going to
contracts.
speed up their
Yeah,
process
yeah.
for entertainers, because that's a kind of a short turnaround, and we can get some of that stuff done.
The big one was the Friday night entertainment.
The uniqueness of the fair is that when they recruit typically the Friday night entertainment, they need to act very quickly in order to secure that. They don't have time to go to the agenda, board, et cetera. And so hopefully the $25,000 will permit that. There's also some contracting issues with the fair that we don't necessarily need to go into now, but they are subject to the same insurance requirements and indemnity, et cetera, that everybody is. This should alleviate that problem. I mean, some of those entertainment contracts exceed $25,000 or have, but I didn't feel it was prudent to raise it higher just for that one entity. For the
The new proposed policy does clarify and separate out purchasing items with a vendor by department and the contracting policies, which what we're proposing is, if you standardize county contracts, it gives department heads authority up to $5,000. And then contracting up to $25,000 would be the county administrative officer, but that's still going to require county council review or using a standardized county contract which would have our insurance clauses and things that we need in our indemnification. So that does separate out. The third piece to the new proposed policy is clarifying and adding in the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act, which we currently are following, which does allow for public works projects a little bit higher authority to make and have things get done at the county as far as improving our buildings and our facilities. Just one further thing I was going to add, that we did review this with all county department heads and gave them the opportunity for input. I did receive some input, quite a bit actually, in review, so we tried to incorporate what we could in the document and also clarify some of the membership, some of the things that hadn't been addressed in the last 10 years that come up. What about utilities if we don't have anywhere else to go, or things like that. So those are clarified in there. So I'm here to answer any further questions that the board may have.
What kind of memberships would be expected? I mean, you normally see.
CSAC?
Professional
example.
associations typically, whether you're Deputy District Attorneys Association or Public Defenders or Planners Association, I suppose there's one of those. Maybe
Welfare
CAOs
directors.
associations. Yeah, absolutely. All sorts of professional associations.
It wasn't addressed in our current policy, so I just added a clause to say what limits departments could work with.
Any other questions? Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Sure. I think we've come a long way, Mr. Chairman. In June of 1978, the voters of Lassen County, led by Governor Joe Harvey as the president of the Taxpayer Association, same ballot that Prop 13 was passed on, placed a prohibition on any sort of project exceeding $40,000 being pursued unless it had further approval as a precursor. So going up to our public works projects where we have up to $45,000 is kind of done in-house, and over $45,000 you have your informal bidding, and then formal bidding for stuff like $175,000. It lasted very short. It was actually overruled, unconstitutional on conflicting with some provisions of state law. But it was exercised that fall of November of 1978, where the restrooms that are down at the fairgrounds, right close to where the sarsaparilla stand is, was a $40,000 project, a state fair grant that built that. And at the same time, the judge was wanting to remodel the courtroom for sound and other effects that cost $40,000. So both of those were put on the ballot, and the voters overwhelmingly rejected the courtroom improvements and overwhelmingly accepted the bathroom project. So anyway, it's kind of interesting seeing the way this is migrated over the last 40 years. Thought you'd be interested in that.
Isn't that interesting how you can build those bathrooms with 40 grand?
Back then. They were big size bathrooms.
All righty. Any public comment on this? All righty. So what's the pleasure of the board? Move approval.
I'll second it.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye.
And if Mr. Egan doesn't spend the money wisely, we can take it up with him at a later time.
Okay. All right. Let's take up our, we've got an 11. C1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Lori Anderson, Planning and Building Services. The subject today is application 2014-43 to Stell Ranches LLC, which is a groundwater exploration application. The applicant is proposing to export 3 cubic feet per second, or not to exceed 504 acre-feet annually, of groundwater from Lassen County to Washoe County Valley for irrigation of 129 acres. The land at both the points of diversion in Lassen County and the proposed point again, is in Washoe County, and it is owned also by the applicant. So the action requested today is to conduct a public hearing in accordance with Lassen County Code Chapter 1701 and adopt a resolution to approve the application. The summary of this application is as follows. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing in regard to this application, which proposes again to export 3 cubic feet per second and not to exceed 504 acre-feet of groundwater per year. The Planning Commission did adopt a resolution, Resolution 11-0114, and is recommending approval with conditions that are included in your packet today. And we'll go over those in a second. The board packet includes the board letter, which summarizes the application, as well as the Planning Commission packet, which is a more detailed document and includes some graphics that I'm sure you've looked at, and we can point any of those out today on the screen if you wish. Findings for today, we'll walk through these. Safe yield. To summarize, Section 1701-34 of the pertinent code for this application requires that the board determine that the project will not cause an increase in overdraft and will not adversely affect the long-term storage and transmission of water and will not exceed the safe yield. Also, it will not adversely affect the beneficial use of the overlying groundwater users. And finally, will not adversely affect water replenishment, storage, or restoration. In the analysis that went into the staff work and the Planning Commission's recommendation, Bulletin 118 from DWR was utilized and is incorporated into the record. And based on that, staff did not find any evidence or reason to find that the safe yield would be exceeded in that basin. Also, as with last time, and the board might remember, we had a similar application about 3 years ago, and these applications are for 3-year periods. There's a finding that needs to be made by the board regarding economic surveillance fee. The board may charge this fee if there was going to be some impact that would negatively impact socioeconomic resources in the area. Staff, as with the first time, looked at the project, and in fact, this ranch employs, a dozen or so employees per year, so we don't think that there will be that kind of impact. And so in your resolution, as with last time, we recommend that the fee not be enacted. And monitoring. Lassen County Code Section 1701-34 requires incorporation of appropriate conditions to prohibit overdraft and adverse conditions. Accordingly, we propose, and it is conditioned, that the static groundwater level would be taken twice annually at the beginning and the end of the pumping season. The first measurement would occur before seasonal groundwater extraction begins, and the second a minimum of 72 hours after extraction has concluded. Also, the pumping is limited to a flow meter, which restricts the flow to 32 cubic feet per second. What did I say? 3? Whoops, sorry. 3 cubic feet per second. And I'll let a calculator tell you. I'm going to give you
it's 1,000 years.
For the record, that's Matt May, our natural resource technician.
You know, a normal ag well is up 2,000, 3,000, so. Well,
I don't know
I'm
if
good
it
with
was-
that.
None of mine like that.
They do around, no.
Also, another finding would be that, and it is conditioned so that the permit would be canceled if the property is sold. So we would want to talk to the new owners if they wanted to continue the permit. So from a CEQA standpoint, we don't see, as we did not see the 3 years ago, that this is going to have an adverse effect on the environment. As such, we have proposed a categorical exemption. I go into some detail about what that means, and just back